what has happened in Puerto Rico is not just a natural disaster. There's an op-ed piece by Hector Figueroa, who is Puerto Rican, and he goes into specifically how Washington has set Puerto Rico up for this disaster. So obviously the two hurricanes back to back were bad, but Washington has been gutting them, creating a debt crisis. I'm going to go into all the details because in the op-ed piece, to where they have no infrastructure when something like this happens. Because what happens is Puerto Rico doesn't have they're a territory, so they don't have real representation. They don't really have a senator, or congressman like fighting for them and getting them stuff. So when this happens, we had the Jones Act. So the stage was set for this to happen in Puerto Rico a while ago, way before the hurricane shown up. And I'm going to get into the details here, because this author has a father that's 93 years old in Puerto Rico. So another type of storm had been pounding the island long before last week. With no real representation in Washington, Puerto Rico has always been subject to the whims of stateside politicians unaccountable to the island's people. More than half a century ago, tax breaks lured industry from the mainland to Puerto Rico, but in recent decades, those advantages were yanked back. That set the stage for vulture hedge funds to swoop into the back. Wait a minute, hedge funds did something creepy? No way. There's such honorable, altruistic organizations. Isn't that what a hedge fund is all about? Isn't that who doesn't Chelsea Clinton's husband, isn't he a hedge fund guy? It's got to be good people. They left hospitals, schools, electrical and communication grids so underfunded and fragile to weather a Category 4 hurricane in an island in the Caribbean. It'd be like if California got gutted, all this, and then we're like, oh, we don't have the money to build earthquake-safe housing and, deal with all of the brush fires we have in California. We're not spending money clearing a lot of the brush so it doesn't get bad and putting in this infrastructure. California has a pretty good disaster responding infrastructure because a lot of money is spent to do that. Because we get earthquakes and brush fires and floods. It happens every year. Puerto Rico, island in the Caribbean, doesn't have that. The seeds were sown by a public debt crisis that was made life harder and harder for Puerto Ricans in recent years. The island tried to meet draconian debt payments by making disastrous cuts in public services. These measures pushed Puerto Ricans out of work and into poverty. By 2015, 46% of the population was living under the poverty line, including about 60% of the island's children. Puerto Ricans are Americans, folks. This is America. This is what is happening in America. Same through line. I keep telling you, same through line. Corporations come in, they take up governments. Governments are spending all this money on military, which is basically just war for profit. It's big corporate wars. So we don't have basic stuff. There's people they had to set up a GoFundMe in Las Vegas for people that were wounded from the shooter because we don't have universal health care. Richest country in the history of the world. Inexcusable. Oh, where are we going to get the money from? I'll tell you. How about the $700 billion a year we spend in the military? How about that? How about we just gave Trump an additional $80 billion for the military. You know who voted for that? Dianne Feinstein, Kamala Harris, Tim Kaine, and other fine Democrats. Fine Democrats. The Commonwealth's tight budget has made life on the island impossible for hundreds of thousands of families. They migrated to the mainland in central Florida. They were arriving daily by the hundreds before the hurricane season. Then came the hurricanes. Right? The immediate needs in the island include search and rescue, getting communications back up, and clearing roads to get goods and help people who need it. Beyond that, though, Puerto Rico needs Congress to help it recover from the devastating wrought by economic strategies that have failed the island for decades. Do you think we'd treat one of the states in the mainland this way? I don't think so. The plan must begin with collapsing the health system. Puerto Rico is in urgent need of $295 million in Medicaid funding that Congress approved in the spring, and additional funds to rebuild a system that is putting some of the country's sickest, poorest, and most vulnerable citizens at risk. The Jones Act, which basically to deliver anything to Puerto Rico, it has to be on a ship that is built and in America, and it flies an American flag. Trump finally lifted that. John McCain has been trying to get rid of that act for years. Congress needs to completely repeal the Jones Act because that has hindered economic growth and stability in Ireland. It's time we face the facts about Puerto Rico's debt. As former Governor Padilla said, it's unpayable. The only thing the debt has done for the people of Puerto Rico is put a temporary stay on claims from bondholders and other creditors. Even as they acknowledged this disaster, President Trump reminded people on Monday that the island, which has already suffered from broken infrastructure and massive debt, is in deep trouble. Then do something, federal government. It would be immoral to insist that Puerto Rico can rebuild their homes, hospitals, schools, and roads. They must pay back this onerous debt. Instead, repayment must be postponed, maybe even eliminated. The banks that have benefited from the debts must take their own losses and let people come first. Yeah, fuck the banks. Oh, the banks don't get their money back? Oh, the banks that got bailed out by Bush and Obama? Those banks? Oh, man, my heart goes out to those banks. Wow, they can't profit off of poor people some more? And let the federal and get money from the federal government? Oh man, that's too bad. I'm so sorry for the banks. That's just such a bummer. So I think this is another opportunity here. I know there's a lot of negative news out there, and this is not a happy story. This is brutal, and what people in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands are going through is brutal, and they're not getting enough help is brutal. The mayor of San Juan, that's a leader. She wasn't golfing. What I would like to see is using these things as, and when people say don't politicize it, tell them to shut up. Yeah, we absolutely need to politicize. Not just the global warming of the hurricanes and their size and strength, how they can keep increasing because of global warming, but also this failed system. And I don't want to hear we don't have the money. We have the money to drop cluster bombs in the Middle East, which are called, like, aren't they outlawed by the UN? We have the money to bomb poor people, but we can't help them after a disaster. We can't set up an infrastructure to prepare for these disasters. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. So I hope what comes out of this is Puerto Rico, screw the banks. This debt was created when they changed the system and let the hedge funds come in anyway. So I don't care about their debt. Wipe out the debt. They don't have to repay it, and put some real money into some infrastructure there. Let's help people. When did compassion end in this country? Screw the poor. Fuck them. I mean, I know Puerto Rico is surrounded by water, big water. So let's help them out. They're Americans. And don't we just want to help out fellow human beings too? Or if you don't want to do that, then you're not a Christian. Don't call yourself a Christian if you don't want to help out your fellow human beings. Find little ways to help out, get behind progressive policies, and let people know. Because I don't think a lot of Americans know how poorly Puerto Ricans have been being treated and that they are American citizens. So, spread the word.